Hello, everyone. Welcome, Qasim. Welcome, Hind. I'm gonna share on social media, so give me just a few seconds, then we can start. Okay. Preparing live streaming preview. Okay, so what is the, okay. I think now we're live. Hi, everyone. We have already some attendees with us. Welcome. Welcome to this webinar. First of all, thank you, Hind. Thank you, Qasim, for being with me tonight. This is like a coffee talk. Everyone knows the subject. How can we attract people like you to come back to Morocco? What are the challenges that you're facing? So we'll start with Hind. Can you introduce yourself? A little bit about your background, where were you born, and what are you doing now? And if you have any things that are very special about you, please share them with us.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Samir. My name is Hind Habash. I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts, kind of making my way down the East Coast here, spent about 10 years in New York City. And now I'm transplanted in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. I spent about 10 years in Manhattan fundraising for Sentinel Real Estate, which was a fully integrated real estate company. My major role there was basically overseeing their GCC accounts. So like Qasim, I had a lot of history with sovereign wealth funds based in Qatar, also Bahrain, Saudi, UAE. I'm also in private practice, so I am a registered attorney in the United States, registered in New Jersey, and now I'm applying for transferring for registry in DC. Currently, I'm regional director of a technology company as well. So it's a remote workforce SaaS company called Transparent Business. I'm overseeing the regional development in the MENA region. It's all about remote work, and that's kind of the new trend. So it's remote work because COVID-19 was hard hit last year. And so that's in a nutshell about me. My family is from Mohammedia, Morocco. So if anyone out there is from Mohammedia, whoop, whoop. And that's a little history about me.
Thank you very much, Hind. Qasim, what's up, man?
What's up? What's up?
How are you?
And, amazing.
Go ahead.
And, seriously impressive, very impressive. Samir, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here and share a little bit of the thoughts. So, see myself as a supply chain professional. I'm living in UAE. I've spent 4 years covering the region. So the region that Hind knows quite well, and I think Samir, you do as well. So Dubai, Qatar, Saudi, and Kuwait. I spent 4 years in Qatar for the same company as a logistics head. And before that, I worked for various roles in supply chain in Morocco, but covering missions also abroad. And I have also a company doing supply chain in Morocco. The funny thing is that all my accounts are abroad, so none of my accounts is in Morocco. So this could be also interesting thing to look at. And yeah, those are small bullet points about Qasim. Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks.
Hashim.
And Qasim, you're from Casablanca. Where are you from?
So I was born in Casablanca and I was raised in Rabat. So I'm a little bit a mixture of both.
You,
So
you, you,
Casablanca and Rabat.
you talk about Casablanca and Rabat as if they are two different countries.
They are two different cities, very different in terms of dynamics. But look, they are both very interesting, and they both had a big part of, I had quite very important parts of my life in each of both cities. Yeah.
So we have with us a lawyer and we have with us a logistics guy. And Hind, we spoke about some of the things that you try to do in Morocco. And guys, by the way, feel free to talk بالدارجة فرنساوية بالإنجليزة, so it is really open to so that everyone can understand us. So Hind, you speak Moroccan. I know that you spent all your life almost in the US, but you speak some Moroccan, right? I can't hear you. Okay, go ahead.
كان فهم العربية
Uh-huh.
المغربية شوية شوية. So I
Yeah.
prefer English, but you guys can speak whichever language. I'm in and out.
So Hind, how did you try to help Morocco? Tell me your connection with Morocco, some anecdote stories that you lived through that you tried to help and things.
Sure. So I'm not sure. You probably lost me. It's my connection. I spent my entire life going to Morocco as a child over the summers. My sister and I spent our summers over there. Last year, I resigned from the firm that I worked for over 10 years, and I decided maybe it was a good idea to work in Morocco. So it was a great start of a relationship. I went there in December, started looking for jobs, and then went back in about January, started looking for jobs. And I thought maybe because, it was the right time, it was a little bit difficult in terms of the ease of finding positions in Morocco. It wasn't as easy as the US, so to speak. It wasn't, you go online or go through a recruiter. So I think that was the first time it kind of hit me that was a little bit apples to oranges in essence. I think the first time that it hit me was trying to set up a scholarship fund. I do have 2 scholarships that I run in the US, but one is through a public high school and one is through a private university. I did those with complete ease. Both of them are geared towards Middle Eastern studies. Both are for kind of pivoting towards Moroccan students. I can't really give them straight to Moroccan students, but they're both with Moroccan audiences, geared towards Moroccan audiences. I try to do that in Morocco, and both times it was very difficult trying to just set it up.
You're trying to help Moroccans get a scholarship.
Exactly. So
تعطيهم البورصة، تعطيهم الفلوس باش يمشيو يقراو in the US.
Exactly.
And you found it hard. So you're actually given, and people tell me more about that.
In the US, it's very tough to try to extract money from Moroccans. So, and in Morocco, it's hard to extract it from institutions.
So will the money, so what you're saying is the money will be raised in Morocco to pay for studies of Moroccans in the universities in the US.
In the US, it would be from individuals. So raising from individuals, it would be matching fund to fund. So I would match their scholarship amount. So for instance, $500, I would match $500, or $100, I would match that. Or we would find a matcher or a donor. In Morocco, it was hard just to actually put together the scholarship, or finding the ease of putting together the scholarship. So those are just 2 different examples, both the scholarship setup and finding a job.
Okay, and okay, so let's talk about finding a job. You're a lawyer by education, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that we have very tough in Morocco is called l'équivalence,
Yes.
equivalency. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, other countries accept our degrees, but we don't accept other countries' degrees.
Yes.
So tell me about that experience. It's very interesting.
So under the American Bar Association in the US, we have what we call the Rule of Law Institute. And the Rule of Law is it's a voluntary program. It's an 8-week program where lawyers go to different countries and they study the system's corruption in that country. Morocco was on that list.
We don't
So,
have, wait. We don't have corruption in Morocco. What are you talking about?
so
Okay. Go ahead,
let's
continue.
let's say it was
No, we're just
theoretically
theoretically.
it was on that list.
Okay.
And they came back with feedback and potential suggestions to implement on that list. Those volunteer lawyers came back. They took 8 weeks off, no pay, nothing. They came back and they said, this is what we need to do to help Morocco and their rule of law and their system. And we absolutely need attorneys in Morocco, whether they need to have that equivalency system or not. The challenging problem is, number one, the language barrier, and number two, that system of equivalency. Absolutely. There are very few American lawyers in Morocco, and it has to be, I think, with the law firms, the American law firms or international law firms who will bring in general counsel or internal counsel.
So you could not practice in Morocco. You can't.
I would have to have either my own practice, practicing international law, or immigration law.
Okay. But in Morocco, I know I have my father and my brother are lawyers, and I know that's you know, you need to do the whole thing again, and bar exam, and their stage 2 years, and they need to accept you in some city, etc. So it's very tough. So first of all, I want to thank you for what you're doing about scholarships, because I am in the education world, and if we can do anything to help Moroccans get scholarships abroad, or at least get partial scholarship, I am all ears, and I will make any efforts. Will create the bridge to
Thank you.
to give such opportunities to Moroccans to study abroad. I did that, and I'm who I am today thanks to the education I got outside Morocco, namely in the United States.
I have to say, I'm a product of scholarship here in the United States, and it takes the community, you know? So if it's not one person, if it's a community of us, this is how we catapult Moroccans abroad and Moroccans in Morocco.
Actually, a lot of people don't know, and I'm going to say it in English and in Moroccan as well. I did my master's and I did bachelor, master's, and PhD in the US. And my master's and PhD, I got 100% scholarships.
That's
And I
amazing.
used to get a teaching assistantship pay and a research assistant pay. So, ça coûte 0 dirham if you know how to target the universities. And a lot of universities, beaucoup d'universités ما يقبلوك غير لما يعطيوك une bourse. Okay, they have certain scholars, especially in the technical field, whether it's engineering or computer science. And unfortunately, only Asian countries take advantage of that. They have a process. In my master's degree, I used to be me, 2 Americans, and 25 Indians. Okay, that was our batch of students studying. So a lot of Moroccans don't know these things. They don't know about the programs that exist in community colleges, which are not very expensive to study in the US. And some community colleges now are offering even 4-year degrees. So a lot of people don't know these things, and I think it's good to know about that. Qasim, صاحبي انت قريتي في المغرب وخرجتي على برا. يلا اخويا عاودنا.
I think you tapped into something very, very, very important when you've been talking about the you know, the scholarships. So you said people don't know about it, and I'm going back to this point, and I would like to ask a question. I mean, why people do not know about it? I mean, I think this is one of the reasons. I mean, I'll go back to the first question that you asked, Hind, what she does for Morocco. So, I mean, hats off. There were a lot of initiatives. At my end, it was more benchmarking what I've been seeing abroad, and just having many question marks in the beginning. Why don't we have the same thing back home? And what could we do to have the same thing here? Or what does it take? And I believe many of the people that are living abroad or that are working abroad and that are considering coming back are asking the same question. Those people would love to come back, but they have one big question mark. Is it worth it? I mean, shall we go back? What would we miss? Why would we go back? What would we like to do next? Why Morocco, not another country? So I'm at this stage, you know, it's a big roundabout where we say, shall I go back? And if I go back,
ندخلوا ولا ما ندخلوش ياك؟ To go or not
وإلا
to
دخلنا
go?
وإلا دخلنا علاش غندخلوا? So
Okay.
if we go back, why would we go back? And you know, without
أنا
numbers,
دخلت صاحبي، راه قسم أنا دخلت للمغرب. I think you
un très beau
can.
résultat.
Huh? Go ahead.
Très bon résultat. So it's no, but I'm not the only one asking this question. You know, all the Moroccans, and I meet a lot abroad, and all of them are asking the same question. You know, I've been thinking to go back. So why haven't you been back home? Well, I'm still thinking about it. And you know, everybody has the same, you know, apprehension about flying back, leaving everything behind, coming back, and then not being valued to the real value. So
So there you feel that when you come to Morocco, when you come back, and you are a star outside Morocco. In Morocco, you have to convince people that you are just an average person, while you're a star outside. Is that the feeling?
The feeling is more. The feeling is more not to turn into something else by accepting what's going around you. So you know, I see it as two powers, each dragging in one side. So you have the environment or the acceptance. So people accepting, and it's not only Morocco. You see this in many countries. The population accept what's going around them, or the people, the residents or the citizens. They accept what's going around them, and then they say, okay, this is the fact, and we will follow it. And there are other people. Those other people, which I consider myself as part of them, you either, in case you go back, you will either have to accept what you see and then go along with it and then maybe change again, because you've been like that at some point, I guess, or try to make some changes. And you know, there is this dual, you know, power in both sides. Can I convince people to change, and how much change can I make, and can I make change alone, and why would I do it? So after you convince yourself, why would you start changing things around you? How to start, where to start, and why do I want to see things changing? At my end, I would love to see things changing. Why? Because if I'm not wrong, I think 40% of Moroccans that live abroad send money back home as a family support or as investment, etc., etc. So being capitalist, you would say.
See, let me tell you, Qasim, Moroccan, Maghreb, when they look at people like you outside, we only value the money that you transfer, and I am against that. I am more interested in your gray, in your brain, in your software than the hardware. There's a lot of ideas that you can bring and implement. You're in the logistics. Morocco is right at the tip of Africa, between the US and the Mediterranean and Europe and Africa, and it is a perfect hub for logistics. But unfortunately, if I want to send anything to the US, a letter will almost cost me like $50 to send it. So it's just crazy. But somebody sending me something from China, it costs $1. So I don't know what's going on. So these are certain things that I'm sure that your knowledge and your know-how can help a lot. But unfortunately, we don't value your knowledge. We value more on the money that you transfer into the country. We have like 5 millions living abroad. شحال كيصيفطوا لنا في العام واحد 5 مليار دولار, and we're happy with that.
I think it's the
And
number
that's
2 contributor. I
is,
think
yeah,
after
well, I
the
think
yeah.
بالفوسفات عندنا المغاربه لي
Okay,
ماروكان دو موند. كنا كنقولوا لهم لي زيميغري, دابا ولا كنقولوا لهم لي ماروكان دو موند. So definitely we're interested in your brain power. By the way, you know, amongst the people that we have with us is an American lady, and I'm going to invite her to join us because she moved to Morocco. So this is actually the other way
The
around.
way around. Yeah.
And I would love to invite her. So Elizabeth Myers, I don't know if she can, we can see her. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi there, Samir. Salam
How are you?
alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. So can we see you, or we're just going to hear you?
Yeah, I'll put my camera on.
Oh,
Sorry,
Well-
it's not, it's a bit impromptu.
so
And actually,
Elizabeth is the proof that people can migrate from the US to Morocco. As Gad Malh said, you know, he was with some American. Your father was looking at the US, Morocco, and say, my daughter, on the other side, there's Morocco. So what's attracted you to Morocco?
well, I mean, my connection with Morocco goes back some 40 years. I was, the first time I ever went to Morocco, I was 15 years old, and it was just the winter break in my school year, and spent 10 days there and fell in love with it. Then I fell in love with a Moroccan. So I was married to a Moroccan for 20 years, and I've got 2 Moroccan American daughters who both live in the States now. And about, I guess it's close to, gosh, could it really be close to 10 years ago or 15 years ago? We bought some land in Morocco, and in 2012, I started building my house on the land. And at the time, I was a partner in a huge American law firm, Midwest-based, 600 lawyers. And I started saying to myself, you're building a house in Morocco. Why are you building a house in Morocco if you're not going to live in Morocco? And so that's sort of how this dream came about. So it turned into my mission. I left that firm, left big law, and started doing consulting, and started doing other things like leadership, and bringing groups of students to Morocco to train young Moroccan girls in coding and things like that, which I think, Samir, you're aware of our Code Her program that we did for 2 years, 2 summers in person in Morocco. But this year and this past year, unfortunately, with COVID, we weren't able to do it in person. So we've been running leadership conferences by Instagram and Facebook with some of the same girls, but a growing population of girls as well that are interested in basically learning the skills that they're going to need in the digital age, and the computer age, and the COVID age, and the remote age to function in today's society. And so I was called back to the US last year to be the founding editor-in-chief of a magazine that was that is still focusing on the MENA region. And I had enough of being in Washington, so I came back to Morocco again in February of last year. And then, of course, all the borders closed. And so basically up until November, I was in Morocco the entire time. And finally, because of that, applied for my carte séjour, and have just
for 20 years, this first time you applied for that.
I know, but I've been doing this back and forth thing for decades, with being back between the United States and Morocco. And so, but I'm pleased to say that well, currently I'm in the States because I had to come back. My mother was not doing so well, and but I will be going back to Morocco at the end of this month, inshallah, if everything goes well and borders aren't closed again, and all of these uncertainties we're living in. But You know, it's difficult. It's very difficult. And I know a lot of people, a lot of Moroccans who've come back to Morocco, who I work with, who I have on my programs on as panelists, and trying to start businesses and do new things in their home country. And they find it so difficult. And so that's why I sent you all those questions I sent. I don't know if you got them, but
I
you
did.
know, how we can all work, really work together to make the environment easier for the Moroccans who want to come back and the foreigners who really love Morocco and want to live there and make a living there, to really invest in the people, because there's been now a couple of decades of investing in infrastructure. We've got excellent roads. I'm talking about Morocco. We've got excellent bridges. We've got just
The glass is half full.
yes, the glass is definitely half full. But now there needs to be, in my view, an investment in the people. There needs to be investment in the skills, but not only the skills, the mindset of how you can be an effective business person, how you can um, make things happen efficiently and at low cost, and work together, because there's a lot of things that are impediments to Morocco becoming the country that King Mohammed Sadis wants to be. And a lot of those are to do with the mindset of how you get things done in Morocco. And of course, you know, you mentioned corruption at the beginning. We all know how things are in terms of corruption, but I can tell you that since the first time I came in 78, I see a lot less of it these days. It's just a little bit more difficult to root out now, if you will. But you can avoid it if you really put your mind to it. It means that things take longer. It means that things are harder. But to the extent that people resist corruption, it is better for the entire country.
Elizabeth, did you meet Hind before?
You know, I just checked her out. I just checked you out, Hind,
Nice to virtually meet you, Elizabeth.
on LinkedIn. We're already connected, I'm
Yes, we
happy to
are.
say. Yes, but we have not met. And I wish I were going to be stopping in DC before I come back to Morocco. I'd love to catch up with you. But yes,
I
it's
know.
Sharafin.
Sharafin.
Uh,
Wonderful to meet you.
I want to share with you my anecdotes of coming back to Morocco. There was a first attempt after I finished my master's degree. And I was made an offer by Procter and Gamble to come back to Morocco. I was interviewed in Cincinnati. And the offer that I got from the Moroccan branch of Procter and Gamble, I felt they did not like the fact that the US was recommending me to be hired in Morocco. And as a matter of fact, after I accepted my offer, I said, listen, for me to move from the US, I lived at that time about 7 years in the US, you need to help me move. And they say, no, we don't do that. We only do that for expats.
Oh,
And I say, well, hell with you. I'm not going back home. So these are little things that stop you from, you want to go home. Every Moroccan is attached to his country. I mean, we have something built in our DNA. We love our country. We love our people. We love our parents and our cousins and the way we were brought up. I think we're one of the most hospitable countries in the world. And
I
there's
agree.
so many things that's, we enjoy in our country. I was talking the other day with a friend of mine, Rish Finj, it's something, just wheat and and it just makes you drool when you're in the other country and you look at a Cinnabon and it doesn't make it. You just want shrimp. So these are little things that want, bring you home, and you find it difficult. And when you land, there's so many what I call false problems, des faux problèmes. And if every one of us, when we land within our families. We don't have a network like we're connecting. So, for example, Qasim or Hind or, well, Elizabeth, you're Moroccan now. If in Morocco, if you need anything, you can talk to someone like me, and say, okay, how did you do this? Because I understand how you lived. I understand how you live, and I can show you shortcuts on how to do things in terms of authorizations, in terms of maybe I have friends at a high level who can help out. So these are very important things that we need to network and to be more resilient, because many Moroccans come back to Morocco and they go back to where they came from after losing a lot of money and a lot of time. And their kids are so, they become anti-Morocco, okay, because they went through hell while they were in Morocco. So these are little things that I think the best way to approach it is through a network, by in a network. And LinkedIn is a very good network of people, so I connect a lot with people who are outside. I think my education venture or my education school is now, a lot of people, when they go back home and they have kids, the first thing they start looking for is a school. And like you said, Elizabeth, we want to give the same education in Morocco that you get outside Morocco, or even better. And that's my challenge: is how do we give the same quality? And it's not easy because you have a lot of issues to deal with. But I think, alhamdulillah, there are fighters, and we can learn from each other. And any more anecdotes you can share with us?
Well, I have a lot of anecdotes, but I'm not sure you have the time for it. You definitely gave me hope in terms of giving it a second try. I work remote. This is the best time to change and to give Morocco a second chance, or a third chance, that is, and maybe moving there in the future. My entire family outside of my uncle right now, who's in Boston, lives in Morocco. I hope with the vaccine, I get to go there maybe in March or April. I go there once a year at least. But I did give it a hard try to move there. And like I said before, it really takes a community to try to make those deep movements, try to change things. And I hope with you guys and the people who are participating on this webinar that we can make those movements. I know a couple of years ago, I sit on a couple of different business councils in DC, but a couple of years ago, I did go to the Moroccan embassy here in DC to see if we had a US Morocco Business Council. And they said that we don't. And I said, do you guys anticipate us forming one? Because I see that we have a lot of things that move around within the business councils and the GCC business councils. And they said, no, we don't anticipate forming one. And I said, well, could I lead one? And they said, no. So I brainstorm all the time.
You need their approval. Can't you create one?
Yeah, I was just going to say that,
think
as Americans, we don't
Just
wait
do it.
for wait for approval. We do it, and then if somebody says you can't do it, then you deal with it. But
well, maybe we're forming one as we speak, but a lot of them are backed by embassies, and you might need the authorization because it's tied to Morocco from the monarchy. But I don't know, and you might need their support. And this is something
I think
that
there used to be one that was kind of sponsored by Othman bin Jalloun, U.S. Morocco Council or something, right, Elizabeth?
well, there was the U.S. Morocco trade dialogues that happened, I think, beginning in the Obama administration, but that was a more government to government thing that a lot of business people attended. But what there is, of course, is AmSham in Casablanca with Rabia Al-Alami, and they are a great network to start out with. I think ultimately you would want to have, especially because of if the goal is to have more investment from America into Morocco, then you'd want the support of the economic side of the US Embassy. And there's a new guy who's just come in, I think as of August, to head that up. But it does strike me that ultimately, if you had an organization like this, Hind, if you wanted to start it, I would certainly be supportive and be willing to help you. But once that got off the ground, in my opinion, the Moroccan embassy would be on board because it's an economic need. There's a lot of good that can come from it. There's a coordination function that can come from it. Just a lot of good things that if they weren't on board, ultimately, Morocco would be the loser. So, you know, to have something effective, something working as a bridge across the US, across the Atlantic, to continue the trade dialogues that started in the Obama administration, and that, as far as I know, during the Trump administration have not continued. I think that would be a really, really good thing.
I am connected with Rabia, and we've had conversations via, you know, the AmCham, and I went to the U.S. Trade Forum here in DC a couple of years back, and she's great. But I think it's more along the lines of a business council. So I will.
Yeah, or a chamber. You mean like a chamber?
More
businesses?
business council. Yeah, I think
in the 80s there was a Morocco US Business Council. I think Ben Souda used to head that, and it was sponsored by La BMC, by BMC or Osman Mujloun, who was the chairman of that. So I think maybe that was that died with the time, but needs to be revived.
thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I will get back to you guys on this, and I'll see where I come up, what I come up with.
Great.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Any support from GCC from my end?
Of course, we'll need you.
Yeah, big time.
So I have questions. We got some questions from the audience here. The Fuad asked, what should be done to change the perception about Moroccans living abroad are just money transferring people to intellectual capital people? So Qasim, anybody wants to answer this? Because you guys are living abroad.
Okay, so it's not a perception today. Unfortunately, it is a fact. Today, it's a request. So we answer a request. We are being asked. The government, we understand from the government that we are being asked to transfer, to support, to help. I know many families where, you know, members do not need to send money to support, you know, their brothers, sisters, and parents, but they send money back home because they know that that money would be invested back home. Now, if there is an intellectual or, you know, knowledge to be transferred, then we need to be asked. The government needs to talk to us, or institutions. I mean, I've never heard, unless I'm wrong, I might be wrong, but I don't recall hearing anybody saying, you guys who are living abroad, how could we do this? How could we do that? How could we improve this? How can we improve that? Or not even, I go even one step further, and I would say, what don't you like? I mean, let me give you a small example. Let's say I'm invited to somebody's place, and I'm going there only because it is easy to park and not because I want to be in their home. I think those people would be frustrated. But if I am the only one that don't want to go there, and I only visit because I can park, I would be treated as a fool. I would be the crazy one. But if many people go and visit that house only because they can park and not because they enjoy being there, I believe there would be questions to be asked. Questions asked. Why don't you want to come? Can you have a Dropbox and just, you know, submit? Don't you like having, you know, your luggage dropped on the floor at the airport instead of being on, you know, carousel, and so on and so forth? I mean, there's so many things that can be brought up, so many questions that can be asked, and then we will be gladly answering. Gladly not only answering by complaining, but also by giving solutions. I mean, we know how, not only how things look like abroad, but we know also how things, sometimes we know how things function. And we can suggest, we can propose things. And here we can be sharing suggestions, building suggestions, and you know, supporting
you're right. You know, when sometimes you see things when you visit and you say, hey, I have the knowledge and I have the know-how, I can help. But I think my suggestion is you need to knock at the right doors. Okay, because the people who are behind the right doors don't know you. And for you to know who are the people behind the right doors, you can ask people like me and Elizabeth, because we know these people. There are good people in Morocco who are willing to help and who are in decision-making capability. The other day, I sat with a governor, and the gentleman is someone that you want to meet, because he says, you know, we're facing some issues. And say, you know, I told him I know a Moroccan who's working just on that outside Morocco. He's working in the US. So like, you know, so he took note of these things. So there are people out there who are willing to listen. The frustrating part is when you knock at the wrong door and that person just receives you with a very nice tea, and then you leave, and that ends
Nothing
there,
happens.
and nothing happens, and that's very frustrating. So you know, don't. I think if the cup is half full today, is because a lot of people did the right things. I mean, if you look at the infrastructure of Morocco today, whether it's the roads or the telcos or the hotel industry, or you know, we're good. We're good. I mean, I've been around many countries. You know, we're pretty good. We just need to add lots more, and we need to create the positive momentum.
I agree with you, Samir. I totally agree with you. I interrupt you a second. I totally agree, and this is why the frustration comes from. I mean, there's so many good things happening. You know, in the organization where I work today, it's mostly international. So, you know, each and every single day you're giving, you know, some information about the country. Many people know Morocco, but and know many good things about Morocco. As you said, as you perfectly said, you talked about infrastructure. We have a very good infrastructure. We are the first country, I think, in Africa that has a TGV. We have Tangemed, which is something we can be super proud of. We have
Solar
the
power.
solar station, yeah, which is something amazing. We have so many amazing things in terms of infrastructures, in terms of production. We have made a crazy improvement in terms of industrialization. So we moved from a country that exports phosphate and a little bit of, you know, tomato and fish to parts of cars, complete cars, plain engines, etc. So there is a lot of improvement that has been made. However, for you to come back and say, okay, I'm coming with my family and I want to raise my family in Morocco, there are basic things that needs to be looked at. And I think these are the same things that people talk about. So if my kid gets sick, can I take him to a hospital? Can I trust that hospital? And I know it's very saddening. If let's say I cannot afford the school to my kids, can I take them to the local education, to the, you know, the government education? Public school? Can I trust it? So these are big question marks. So when people come to you and say, okay, Morocco's biggest challenge is education. People are not much educated. You talked about that at the beginning of the discussion. So these are things that for me, these are parts of the infrastructure. I mean, we have roads connecting cities, we have roads connecting factories, customers, and suppliers, but those people, to deal with such an infrastructure and give it a boost, need to be educated.
Razem, you're right. I mean, you're talking about family challenges and business challenges, and I lived through that, but I was lucky. Actually, somebody asked me whether the decision to return back to Morocco after a successful career abroad. Do you have any regrets of returning back overall? Do you feel the advantages of being in Morocco outweigh the odds? Yes, I do. I think Morocco is green everywhere, but it's green from 30,000 feet, because once you land, it's once you land, it hits you, and you'll find out that real estate is outrageously expensive here. You'll find that the banks don't believe in anything but walls and land. They don't believe in ideas. You'll find out that the administration, everything is no, 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 no. And any authorization will take 2 years until you just like lose faith. You find that human resources is a big challenge in this country. If you are used to a productive, rate out of people in this country, unfortunately, we have a system that encourages people just to show up, and they want to get paid just for showing up. Okay, in the US, you can have 10 years experience and you're fired on the spot because you're not productive, and they give you a 2 week severance package. In Morocco, if you want to fire somebody after you have paid him all these years of non-productivity, you still need to pay him for that person to leave your company, and you need to pay him a lot of money. I mean, there's a lot of challenges, but I think we have to look at what we can do. And I think there's a lot of opportunities. And if we networked with each other, both inside and outside Morocco, because I remember in the early 90s, I was in the US and I'm trying to come back to Morocco, and we even created an association called MAS, Moroccan Association of Researchers and Scholars. And we did not have anybody on the other side to talk to. So we were like 200 people, 60 PhDs, 60 masters, and the rest were either professional or bachelor's degree. And there was no counterparts on the other side. I think now the counterpart is there. One of the things that you will find now more and more in Morocco is more Anglo-Saxon people than before, because we used to only have the French educated people. Now you'll find more and more people who are educated in the US, in Canada, in the UK, in China, in Singapore, in a lot of countries around the world. And that brings an entrepreneurship mentality, and it brings a can-do attitude, because I am one of the critics of the French system, because we are just creating employees. We're not creating employers. And that's something that we need to change in our country. Hind, any thoughts on that?
I'm going to have to agree with you in terms of the French system, but I'm a little bit biased. I think obviously one of the major challenges in Morocco, and especially with doing business there, is French, the language. And we have a project there, our firm right now. And one of the major issues was the language. They had to bring me on in my broken Moroccan, Derija, and facilitating a whole proposition. So yes, and I see the questions in terms of, I think there was a question with someone talking about for you, Samir, he's based in Atlanta, Georgia, in the education system, being educated here in the US. I think education is key here in the US and whatnot. So I can add to that. I would love to see something facilitated between you and the US system sometime near in the future. And I would love to partner with you on that. So just to add to that as well, just to give you guys a little piece of some of the research that we do, 75% of the workforce and by 2025 is going to be millennials. So I really have hope in Morocco, and with the next group in the talent pool, that there is going to be a real big movement and shift and a change of the workforce and the culture, the mentality, and what's going on there. So I think that's really what I want to wrap up with.
I think we're already seeing that. If I can jump in here for a minute on earlier this, not this year, but last year during COVID, I was involved in a fantastic entrepreneurial group called Growth Train Africa, which is led by Aissa Azouzi. And what we did was we mentored and incubated a group of young entrepreneurs, Moroccan entrepreneurs, about a dozen or so companies. And the energy is there, the education is there, the mindset is mostly there. We had some issues with a few who didn't meet their commitments, but this is the kind of thing that is happening right now. And we need to cultivate it. We need to incubate them. We need to encourage them. And I think we can do that. I love the idea of having a network. I think those networks already exist. I don't know if you guys are familiar with AMPA, the Association of Moroccan Professionals in America, but that's an organization that actually has been really instrumental in, or I've been instrumental with them, but both ways, in my thinking about moving to Morocco. And we now have, I think there are somewhere around 600 members, and it used to be that they were all in the States. Now we've got a bunch in Morocco, but also all over the world. And if you guys aren't members, I would encourage you for $100 flat fee, membership fee to join. It's a great organization for purposes of networking. And it was one of the ones that the Ministry of MRE, Résident à l'étranger, I guess, reached out to when there were some efforts a few years ago, which I'm not sure are continuing, but at least a few years ago, before this notion of making Moroccans abroad another group in the governance structure, in the regional governance structure, a 13th group, if you will. We had some events that highlighted the expertise of Moroccans abroad in a lot of different areas, and in the medical arena, in education, in research, in business, in just all kinds of things. And those are the kinds of things that need to continue and to be brought more people into, and especially these younger people who've got the right germs of the mindset that can be cultivated, and they can grow into the people that Morocco needs.
We have a lot of questions from the audience, and I would like to give them also an opportunity to ask panelists. Coming back to Morocco. Okay. Can somebody, do you have any thoughts about giving to create a guide for expats moving back to Morocco to work or retire in Morocco? I think it will be a good effort from a lot of people, because we can show people how to do things. And the only thing is Morocco depends a lot on certain people, and we don't have systems. So once those people change jobs or something, that the whole thing kind of falls apart. And that's something we need to do. We need to establish more systems in our country that depend less on people, but more on the system. I like the United States because you have systems that just run by themselves, and whether a person is there or not, it just keeps running. So
well, not to cut you off, Samir, but
yeah.
Even looking at the GCC right now, their entire governments are e-governments. They're entirely paperless, so we don't even have to go far. In the MENA region, we have our neighbors that are running on e-government. So we
Which
kind of
neighbors
have
are you talking about? Which neighbors?
not far.
Well, I think you have to jump all the way to the Gulf region to find true e-governments, but not,
it's creeping up soon to neighbors in North Africa too.
Yeah, I worked a lot on this subject of e-governments while I was in Microsoft, and I usually tell the decision makers, why are you making the Moroccan citizen le coursier pour le gouvernement? Okay, you know the coursier, the guys who just transports papers. I need this paper. You go to this place and you take it to another place. All they have to do is connect the systems and destroy these automation islands and make the islands communicates the islands of information. So I agree with you. It will help a lot. I mean, e-governments, government to citizens, or governments, e-government that is centric around the citizen will make a huge change. And there's a lot of effort to be made there. One of the things that somebody says is, ask not what your country can do for you.
Yes.
But ask what you can do for your country. So Qassem, what are you willing to do for your country? Why don't you Just take a leap of faith.
Why don't I stand up and take the lead? So look, I think I believe that I did 0.01% by creating a company here and when you try to compare a little bit the taxation and what you pay in taxes in many countries vs what you get from it. I think the fact that I have a company in Morocco and not in another country where it could be tax-free area, I think it's already a good thing that I'm doing, or I'm already supporting. Now, more seriously, what I can do, or what I can be, what I'm eager to do, is to be part of, as I think I already shared with you this idea before, is to be part of a panel, or yes, being part of a panel where we can propose or even take the lead on changes and help change things, because Moroccans living abroad do not need a financial support to drive things back home, because they're not benefited from it. They're living abroad. What they want to do, they just want to clean. They're having a home and they want to clean it. So basically, they are not taking advantage from it. There is no political, there is no financial, there is no nothing. You just want to support. So basically, being part of a group that says, okay, guys, you're having those challenges. You don't need to pay any salary to any of those people. And I believe I'm speaking for many people that I know, and I think they would agree with me. And creating a panel and to just, these are the solutions, these are the people, you don't need to pay anything, and doing a consultancy for free, kind of, and this is one of the ideas.
So you want to bridge in with your expertise, and you're already investing in making sure that you have a logistics company in Morocco, which is already something that's to be commended. So Hind, what do you want to do for this country? Ask not what your country can do for you.
I will reconsider moving to Morocco.
Okay.
Those are my thoughts on that. And of course, I intend to expand the scholarship fund for Moroccans who wish to study Middle Eastern studies. I think that this is definitely a study, a section of studies in academia that we need to delve into in terms of international relations and politics. And I think Moroccan students should consider that. So anyone interested in that type of study or program, if you have children or if you have someone in your network or anything, get in touch with me. If they're looking to study in the US, please get in touch with me.
Oh, that's very generous, because a lot of Moroccans want to go and study in the US. Elizabeth, do you think you said that your kids are now in the US, most likely either studying or just finished their universities? Do you think they will come back to Morocco?
I really thought that my younger daughter, who speaks Darija much better than I do, would probably want to come back to Morocco. She is just about to finish a nursing degree here in the US, in North Carolina, and she would be great to have in Morocco, somebody who really speaks English and Darija fluently and can really cross that cultural divide in the medical field. But I don't foresee that she will actually come back to live in Morocco, and not in the near future anyway. Her future for the moment is here. And my other daughter, who is quite a bit older, is on the West Coast, California, and I don't foresee that she would want to go to Morocco, although they love it. And they've spent, the reason my younger daughter is fluent is she spent all those summers, just like you, Hind, in coming back with the family and spending months and months. And then she also spent 1 year at the American School of Marrakesh. And that was an opportunity for a total immersion that year. That was tough for me because I was in the States. And it necessitated actually about 5 trips to Morocco during the school year because of issues that came up that probably didn't really need to have come up. But, those are stories for another day on the education side of things. But they both come to Morocco periodically. They both love Morocco. They both love the culture. They love it when I visit because I cook for them. And so
Uh,
it
If
is
you
what it
asked
is.
me 5 years ago, it would have been never. So they might change their
Ah,
mind, Elizabeth.
yeah. Well, I think you're totally right. I think they probably will, especially if I ever get my house finished. No, I'm joking.
There you
It's
go.
99% finished.
Thank you very much. We're about an hour, and I would like to wrap this up. Just one by one, your last thoughts, and I want to thank you for your great contribution. Hind,
I appreciate everyone on this webinar, this podcast. Samir, thank you so much for having us. Of course, it's going to be challenging in terms of going back to Morocco with assimilation and culture and whatnot, but there's so many resources and such a great network there. I think everybody can kind of do their part and trying to have a great experience. So please reach out to me if you have any questions.
thank you. Qasim,
Yes, I'm available for any support if anybody has any question in parallel, or how we could bring things together to help push things here. I believe things would be developing. I believe also they don't develop at the right rate, but we are heading towards the right direction, and this is why probably we're all in this call today. So thank you, Samir, for the opportunity, and thank you everyone for supporting in this. Thank you.
Elizabeth Al-Maghribiya.
Shukran. So yeah, shukran for inviting me in. This discussion I found really interesting, and my comments, I guess, precipitated that. But I would like to encourage Moroccans, whether you're on the Morocco side or on the US side or anywhere else in Europe, to think about working together, to think about the benefits that there are, the win-win in working as a team. Because when you work opposite each other, things don't happen. And I think all of us really who love Morocco have a vested interest in helping Morocco to improve, in working together towards its improving the quality of life for people, the ability for people to come home when they want to after being abroad for so many years, the ability for the expats, I hate that word, but basically I'm an immigrant in Morocco, right? To come and do good for the country. And if you're constantly worried about jealousies, and if you're constantly worried about if you're jealous of other people because they think they're doing better than you, try working together for a change. And let's all create this network of working togetherness. Everybody wants to be together after this horrible COVID year. We want to be together. We need to work together. And by working together and participating in the systems, participating in the elections, participating in the governance, the question of ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. You can serve your country. So if you're a Moroccan American, run for Congress or something, or, there's so many things to be done to elevate the way we've got this amazing guy, Monsef Slaoui, who's developed the vaccine for the entire world. But working for the Americans doing it. It's, there's so much Moroccan talent out there, and let's work together to highlight those people, to showcase their expertise, and to push other people. The best way to push yourself forward is to push your colleague, to push someone you work with. It's happened again and again in my career as a lawyer. I've brought up young women lawyers, I've brought up young men lawyers to push them in their career, and that reflects well on you. When you promote someone's expertise, competence, when you've mentored them, you've trained them, you promote them, it reflects well on you. And this is one of the things I would like to see Moroccans embrace, because we can all benefit from it.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I want to thank you all. I think it was really great contributions. I'm going to start, I will do this type of webinars and podcasts often, because I think by sharing our experiences, and I'm sure that Hind benefited from knowing Elizabeth and Qasim, and I think this kind of exposing our network and our wealth of intellectual property is a great thing. So this is the first podcast, and I'm going to do a lot more, inshallah. So thank you very much. And I hope that everyone is safe and healthy and to see you soon physically. So take care, guys.
Inshallah.
Thank you.
شكرا. مع
Salama,
السلامة.
shukran. Bye.
سلامة.